Alright you guys, to start the deck profile off, I'm playing 4 copies of Battler of the Twin Brush Polaris. Battler of the Twin Brush Polaris, it's the main grade 3 of this deck. It is a restanding Vanguard on your second grade 3 turn, and then a restanding unit on your first grade 3 turn. I'm really excited to see that Great Nature got something like this. As one of my very first Great Nature decks, I'm very happy that it kind of has like a Overlordish feel to it, because as you guys know, or for those of you that do not know, I mainly play Kagero, so I'm really happy to see this in there. I don't think that when building this deck, the power threshold was something that I was thinking too much about. There was a very easy, clear and target on how this deck wanted to be built. I will say that when building for Polaris specifically, the main thing that I really had to think about in this deck was really triggers and the supporting units, because your strategy is very clear. You want to stack power onto a rear guard, make sure that it can hit Polaris' threshold, and then therefore you'll be able to reach the power necessary to activate its skill. It's a very easy skill to achieve. It is a bit on the heavier resource side, but I really do think that with the way that Great Nature is going in the future support, this deck will be a lot better within the next set. For my next grade 3, I play 4 copies of Amber's Triangular. Amber's Triangular, this is your main Polaris call target for its skill. You're going to use Amber's Triangular on an Excel 1, boost them to 32,000, used about 1 power-up skill or 2 for your Polaris' ability, and then add Polaris' power on that from triggers and effects, and this card will easily reach over 70,000. It has an on-hit skill that I think a lot of people forget about when you play against them, especially when going first, which is why I think it's really upsetting that you can't access the restanding skill on Polaris going second, but not going second, but on your first grade 3 ride. So unfortunately, that's just the worst part about it. But its on-hit skill is when its attack hits, you give one of your rear guards additional 10,000 power, which means that you're going to give it either A, to itself, so it's easier to reach that power threshold, or B, you're going to give it to a boosting unit of Polaris. For my next grade 3 in the deck, I do play some Spice. I'm playing 2 copies of Pursuer of Perfect Circle Flow Panther. I didn't mean to call this one the Spice. It's my next grade 3 I want to showcase, but this essentially is just another power piece. It's another card to help you reach the power threshold of your units so that you can activate Polaris' skill. Getting to 50k is really easy. It's really just another card to help you get to 70k. I have this at 2 so I can make room for the card I meant was the actual Spice of the deck. Now, for the real Spice, and honestly the MVP of the deck, I'm playing 2 copies of Sage Saint Mentor of Black Liqueur, Isabelle. Now, for those of you that do not know what this card does, she essentially is on Vanguard. She activates all the skills from your lottery skills on your units, and then when she's on the Vanguard, you can essentially reuse one of your on-place abilities of your cards you already have, and give your units 10k if your opponent's grade 3. But the first and third skill of this deck are irrelevant. It's only the second skill I actually care about, and the second skill of her is that when you place her on the Vanguard Rearguard circle, you look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and you put them on the top of the deck in any order. That is a really big deal in this deck for the simple fact that Polaris needs to see triggers all the time. It needs to see at least 1 trigger in case you don't have another power-up skill, or the trigger lineup in this deck is very mixed when I show it to you, so it just made more sense to have this in there, and it'll explain itself when I show the triggers. But being able to check your deck and play around with your triggers, and the fact that it's grade 3 along with other support cards we have on the deck means it's a searchable card that can manipulate your deck even more after you've thinned out the deck and shuffled it from searching her out. Again, this is my like spicy tech of the deck. You don't have to play this. You can play more grade 2s. You can play more Flow Panthers. You can play that hamster thingy that you counterblast 1 and give something on the Excel 10k in itself. I didn't play that over this because Polaris does not build a hand. Like, unlike most Great Nature decks, you are not building a hand in Polaris. So therefore, I figured since I don't want to use a card from my hand and a counterblast to fill up my soul when I already have a sort of resource engine in the deck already, I'm going to go ahead and play a card that can do something else for me. And looking at Great Nature's grade 3s, there weren't really too many good options, so she came up when I saw her abilities on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. Moving on to grade 2s, I play 4 copies of the Measured Fossa. Measured Fossa, just like my Flow Panther, is another unit that can give 10,000 power to one of your cards. Again, this is another card that's going to help you reach that power threshold of 70,000 for your attack. The calling 1 card as well is extremely helpful. It helps you build a board, which Polaris obviously needs because you need to get more pieces onto your board so that you can either A, boost Polaris, or potentially get a card on board that has an on-play skill that will assist you. For my next grade 2, I'm playing 4 copies of Blusher Paroquet. however you pronounce this card. But essentially, this is your grade 2, grade 3 searcher. It is on ride or on place. You counterblast 1, check top 7, add a grade 3 to hand. If it's on the rear, it gets 12k, and then it gives you, it'll retire at the end of the turn. So this is just to filter out the deck for more of the grade 3 pieces. You really need to be seeing your Amber's Triangular. It is so huge, because if you get anything else, it's not that you can't reach the power threshold, it just means that you have to use a lot more resources to reach the power threshold for any of those other units, because even this card itself doesn't go past 12. Your Flow Panther, your Fossa, and then another card I play in the deck will all help you reach that power threshold, on top of the fact that you are giving Polaris power, and Polaris will give its own power to the card. Hence the reason why deck thinning and trying to get triggers on your first Polaris attack is really huge, because after the first attack, whatever triggers you get from there don't really matter, because you're not going to there's no power threshold or any other gain from a second Vanguard attack, other than what you'll give to rear guards. So having this card to filter out the deck for the key grade 3 piece that we play, as well as my tech grade 3 pieces, is extremely necessary, and I think this card is going to be a 4 in the deck for a long time. Okay, moving on to my grade 1s. This is a spicy grade 1 that I'm playing, but I am playing 2 copies of Tapping Cat. Now, I call Tapping Cat my spicy grade 1 for the deck because I see a lot of players either A, not playing him, B, playing Coiling Duckbill, or C, they play another card. What's it called? Oh, they play the bird thingy. They play the toucan bird, where I believe you call it onto the rear guard circle and you bounce something. No, I didn't like any of those. The toucan bird, maybe, now that I'm thinking about it, for the Isabelle. But Tapping Cat is perfect in this deck because few reasons. In Polaris, you need to reach a power threshold, and you need your skills like Fossa, Panther, and the other grade 1 I'm going to showcase to you all give 10k power to a unit, but they also retire at the end of the turn. So because they're going to retire your Amber's Triangular at the end of the turn, and you don't have another one from either searching your deck out or filtering for pieces, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to play a card that can be a good booster and take all these power-ups and then benefit from that. And Coiling Duckbill was cool for a minute because you would play your Triangular and then you blow it up and you get a benefit, but Coiling Duckbill's effect, the second one activates when you blow something else up versus itself. And I was like, ooh, I don't like that, because that means I have to Coiling Duckbill here, a card here, and it could be like something else. And I lost out essentially on 2 cards. This card is, you'll have it in the back from your Polaris, and then you'll have your Polaris there. And then you'll use your Fossa, your Panther, stack 10k onto this, make this a 28k booster. Your Polaris is 12, boom. 40,000 power is going to go to your Amber's Triangular, who will at that point be at 72k, unless they let her on-hit attack effect go through. And then you are pretty much at the power threshold point. Plus, when it dies, you have the ability to put it in the drop zone, and you're always going to go for the draw. The only time you ever do the other 5k skill is literally like if I mill it out and I want the other 5k power, I'll do it. But 9 times out of 10, this card just will be another draw engine like an Upstart Goblin. So it's basically a better target for all your power-up skills if you don't want to blow up your Amber's Triangular, which is something I honestly do not like to do. So that's why Tapping Cat is the spicy tech of the deck. For my next grade 1, I'm playing 3 copies of Afflated Lemur. So Afflated Lemur is Great Nature's essentially resource management card. On place, you will mill a card from the top of your deck, and if it's a normal unit, you soul charge. If it's a trigger unit, counter charge. This deck uses all of your resources. You're using soul for your Tapping Cats and your Panthers and Fossas. You're using counterblast for your Paroquets, your Fossas, and your Polaris. So literally whenever you play this card, you drop it and you mill something. Any benefit you get is really good, honestly. It just means that you get to play around with what you have. Like for example, if I get a counter charge, it just means I can probably do one other fancy thing, versus if I get a soul charge where I can proc another skill off for more power. For my next grade 1, I'm playing 4 copies of History Scholar Bushboeckh. Bushboeckh, it's one of our ride targets in the deck. We use this card to filter out in case we're missing. If we don't get our grade 2 ride, if you guys already saw in the deck, I'm only playing 8 grade 2s. None of the other grade 2s in Great Nature interested me. Compass Lion's cool, but yeah, it's cool, but I don't care for it. And then there's the Pencil Squire, or Pencil, the Hamsuke rival card that's counterblast 1, soul blast 1, check top 2, add something to hand. It's cool, but again, Paroquet is so much better, and Fossa gives power. That card only powers up itself. And then I could talk about everything else like binoculars and stuff, and none of it fit. So Bushboeckh, really good card. It's good ride target, and it's a good power up card too, because you'll have it blow himself up, and then you'll give 10k power. Obviously, your tapping cat or your Embers Triangular for the power threshold. For my last grade 1, I'm playing 4 copies of Diligent Assistant Minibelly. In this deck, you need to hit Polaris. You need to hit Polaris on ride. Riding anything else sucks. Isabelle's cool. But it's not Polaris, and same thing with Flow Panther. The only time I ever find going into Flow Panther actually relevant is if I'm playing against a matchup where it's like, okay, their game is really slow. I can stay on Flow Panther for 1 turn to like boost my resources and keep my cards, because I'm gonna draw a crap ton of cards, because Flow Panther will net you an extra draw when you retire something. So we need to fetch out our pieces. Plus is a 13k booster, so with Polaris I'll reach 25,000 power, making obviously really good numbers. For my starter, I am playing the cutest starter ever. It is 1 copy of my beginning Hyrax. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and go into my triggers of the deck. And this is something that I really want to talk about. So for my offensive triggers, because they are something I do want to speak a little bit about, I'm playing 3 copies of Correction Chinchilla. And then I'm playing 4 copies of Triangle Cobra. So these are my offensive triggers of the deck. So in Polaris has 2 things. When you play the off-front build, and I think this is, I really want to talk about this because I see a lot of Polaris decks play all crits, and I feel like that is wrong, because in Polaris you have to reach a certain power threshold, and it costs a lot of resources. Like I said before, if you don't see your Embers Triangular, you are either using the skill of Polaris and hoping for triggers with an AK booster, or you're using the skill of your rear guards to power up, but again, you need at least 2 power-ups to reach that power threshold, minus if you get 1 trigger. Crit triggers have a place in the deck because Polaris is a restanding Vanguard. We want to make it scary. But front triggers have a place in Polaris too, because what a front trigger will do is you'll reveal a front trigger. It's going to give 10k to the front row, which means you're going to give 10k to the target for Polaris' skill, and then give 10k to Polaris itself. And then Polaris is going to dump all of that power onto the unit that needs to meet the requirement for its 70k attack so that it restands. So therefore, there's this huge battle between Polaris players of crits versus fronts. Crits versus fronts. And I've noticed that a lot of American Polaris decks, they play the crits. But I've seen a lot of Japanese Polaris decks, they play the fronts. And at one point I was playing Rainbow, but then I realized that Polaris does not draw a lot of cards besides your tapping cat bonus. So I had to play an extra draw trigger that I'm going to showcase in my other triggers. So therefore, I'm stuck in this huge debate of where I want it to be at. And I said to myself, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to just play both until I figure out which one I like more. I really honestly like this list because I now have Isabelle. I can literally like check the top 3 cards of my deck, and then I can manipulate my turnaround based off what I see. I can call Isabelle out, and if I only see 1 crit up front, that means I need to call another card that's going to give power to my Embers Triangular and my booster, and then I just change my attack pattern. But if I see a front trigger, that means, okay, that's essentially what, a 30k bonus onto the card that is going to be the target for Polaris' skill. I'm straight. I don't need to invest like 2 Soul Blasts to make it stronger. So right now, I really feel like this trigger lineup is really good. I think people see it and they kind of knock it because you're not really dedicating yourself to one thing. Polaris needs both. This deck needs both. Your rear guard attacks just aren't that strong, and even though it's a multi-attack deck and with a restanding Vanguard, swinging for 17 on left and then swinging for 12 on right is not good. And the Embers Triangular pressure is the only thing that's helping this deck reach numbers, besides your cards giving themselves power, but then they blow themselves up. And this isn't that type of deck where you benefit from them blowing themselves up. It actually kind of hurts a lot when I keep losing key pieces on my board for offense. So right now, I'm gonna leave my trigger lineup the way it is. The only changes I would probably make right now is I would take out one of these and play an extra draw trigger, or I would commit myself to fronts. That's the only thing I'm going to say about triggers when it comes to this. And I just want that discussion to be open about that. Now that I've spoken on my offensive triggers, these are my regular defensive triggers. I'm going to play 1 extra draw trigger, and then I'm playing 4 copies of Cable Sheep. In Polaris, you do not draw a lot of cards. Even though Polaris is a restanding Vanguard who doesn't require any minus drive or discard, you still are putting a lot of cards on the board, and you're doing a lot of other skills that will counterblast you and filter out pieces, but none of them really draw you cards to build up your hand for defensive purposes. So I think that this is perfectly fine. I wasn't playing extra draw trigger at first. I was trying to be really aggressive, but Polaris is aggressive enough on its own on top of the power-up skills, so this is fine. Honestly, I kind of want to play an extra draw trigger, but you know, I can't do that without minusing one of my crits or my fronts, and I haven't decided which is better yet. And then finally for my triggers, I am playing the 4 copies of the Heal Guardian. I think that the Heal Guardians are, honestly, in my opinion, they are mandatory, especially in a deck like this, because Great Nature, just from my experience, cannot handle being rushed. There is no Compass Line in this deck, so I can't ride Compass Line and laugh at my opponent as they try to call boosters to get over the Compass Line with a defensive trigger. So Heal Guardians, they're grade 3s, they're searchable, they give you damage, they survive your opponent's insane first grade 3 turn as well. I would prefer to go back to 20k shields, but this is a necessity right now. That is it for the deck profile, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I want to say that about my camera quality, that I am now shooting videos with a combination of my Canon from the top and my Logitech from my Logitech webcam. So if you guys do enjoy videos like in this type of view where you guys can see me in the corner with my deck profiles and hands showing you what's going on, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll keep filming like this. If not, I'm going to go back to my old way of just doing the one shots from my Canon to my face, so that this way we have the best quality ever. Without further ado, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and head on out. Peace, y'all.